What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the Detroit Lions have just finished their first full week of training camp for this 2020 season, and as the training camp, at least the first week, comes to an end, we're kind of getting a feel of how this Detroit Lions team was constructed, how they're playing out, and how the Detroit Lions team is going to look in the 2020 season. We're getting a look at who's playing well in the first week, who's not playing well, who's exceeding expectations, and who is not quite meeting them. So in the video today, we're just going to be talking about the major takeaways from week 1 of training camp, as well as a little bit of Detroit Lions news at the very end. And with that being said, we got a lot to get into, so without any further ado, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying the content, consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel, as it only takes 2 seconds out of your day to make mine, and I'd be very, very appreciative to everybody that chooses to do so. But with that being said, let's get into talking about Detroit Lions training camp of week 1 and the little bit of Lions news we do have. Now, the first takeaway is that Jeff Okudah is adapting to the NFL very quickly. We made a video talking about Jeff Okudah's struggles the other day. You know, his first 2 days of training camp did not quite go exactly how Jeff wanted. He was slipping a couple times. He fell to the ground a couple times in his one-on-ones versus Kenny Galladay and Quintez Cephas. He was practicing with the twos and wasn't really, looking like he was the number 3 overall pick, or wasn't necessarily looking like he was worthy of that number 3 overall pick. However, the day after I made that video, Jeff Okudah had his best practice yet, where he had, a couple pass breakups, a couple really nice plays, and, he was starting to grow that confidence. And the day after that, Jeff Okudah had an interception on Matthew Stafford, who we will talk about in a little bit, is having a very, very good training camp. So Jeff Okudah seems to be warming up to the NFL a little bit. He seems to be adapting a little bit. I don't want to say it's my fault. I don't want to say that I caused Jeff Okudah to play better, but I'm just saying he started playing better the day after I made that video. So you're welcome, Jeff. But on a serious note, he's adapting very, very well. He's, warming up to the NFL. He's warming up to the Detroit Lions, and he is starting to play a lot more like the 3rd overall pick we selected him to be. The second takeaway is that DeAndre Swift is dominating, and we made a video talking about this yesterday, so I'm not going to go too in-depth, but basically this dude's winning all of his matchups. He is not being stopped by anybody. The only thing that has slowed him down is injuries thus far, and as I am aware, he did return to practice today with the Detroit Lions. So he's back, he's ready to go once again, and hopefully he is going to get right back on and hit the ground running right where he left off. Now, if you want to hear more about DeAndre Swift's training camp, I have a video yesterday that came out talking a lot about him, what he's done in training camp, and the comparisons that are being drawn for him. So if you are interested in that, go over and check that video out, as it has a lot more information on DeAndre Swift's training camp so far. The third takeaway is that Jonah Jackson is going to be a starting guard for the Detroit Lions. Now, this is kind of the consensus, what we thought was going to happen as soon as we made the selection, but it wasn't necessarily a guarantee. A 3rd-round rookie out of Ohio State, we thought, we have a guard situation, we have some question marks at the guard position, and Jonah Jackson is a very solid guard, but we didn't necessarily know whether Jonah Jackson was going to start or not. But it seems as though that is the case, as Jonah Jackson has been playing with the Detroit Lions first string team for the entirety of the first week. Unlike Jeff Okudah, unlike DeAndre Swift and many of the other rookies, they are not taking it slow with Jonah Jackson, as they threw him right into the fire, and he seems to have stepped up to the challenge and is embracing his role as the starting right guard for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, nothing is guaranteed yet. Jonah Jackson could have a really rough next 3 weeks and not start week 1, but as of right now, it does seem as though Jonah Jackson will be the starting right guard for the Detroit Lions come week 1 when we kick off against the Chicago Bears. The next takeaway is another 3rd-round rookie in Julian OConnor. He seems to be healthy. He seems to be ready to go. He seems to be fully back on his feet and ready to play football at the next level. As many people know, Julian OConnor did end up breaking his femur in the 2019 college football season and missed a majority of that season for the Fighting Irish. However, the Detroit Lions selected him in the 3rd round anyway, and he seems to be ready. He seems to be healthy once again. I've heard a lot of things of him winning his one-on-ones. I've heard stories of him beating Big V. I've heard stories of him beating a lot of our offensive linemen off the snap, and he's using his elite quickness, his elite speed to get around the edge. And I've also heard he's developed a couple moves in training camp, which was his big knock. When he was coming out of college, his big knock was he relies too much on his athleticism and his speed. And from what I've seen, he has developed a little bit more technique since he's been in the NFL in just this short week. I heard a really nice, where I think it was Big V who kind of set the edge, beat him to it, didn't allow Julian OConnor to use his speed to get around, and Julian OConnor had a really nice spin back inside and got a late pressure on the quarterback. So I've heard some stories about Julian OConnor coming in really healthy, really looking good, and he's also received some reps with the first team. Now, the last rookie that I want to talk about is Quintez Cephus. Now, this guy, if you know me, if you know the channel, if you've watched for a while, you know I'm super high on Quintez Cephus. I was high when we drafted him. I was high before the draft. In my first ever video that I made, don't go watch it, but I did have us taking Quintez Cephus in the 5th round, and I thought it was an absolute steal, and we did it in real life. So, I mean, hey, maybe I should be in charge of drafting. I don't know, but I love Quintez Cephus. I love his mindset. I love his hands. I love just the way he plays football, and he's so physical and so aggressive at the point of the catch, and he is absolutely dominating training camp. I've heard so many really good stories of him just absolutely exceeding expectations. He's getting open, he's making every catch that's thrown his way. He is just dominating the Detroit Lions defensive backs right now, and if he continues to play like this, there is a possibility that he gets a lot of playing time in the 2020 NFL season. Now, the rookies that I haven't heard a lot about are Logan Stenberg and John Penisini. I've heard Logan Stenberg is working out at backup center, but has struggled quite a bit in his first week. And I've heard John Penisini is doing all right, but I haven't heard necessarily anything about him being crazy or him exceeding expectations like we've seen from Quintez Cephus. So I've seen John Penisini's been solid. I've heard that Logan Stenberg has been struggling, but they got time to figure it out still. They still got time to define a role. They still got time to impress the coaches in the next 3 weeks. So moving on to the veterans of the team, the guys that have been here for a while, Frank Ragnow is dominating. Now, I know we all are super high on Frank Ragnow, but from everything that I've read, everything that I've seen, it seems as though Frank Ragnow has taken his game to the next level and is ready to join that elite tier of centers. I've heard that he's just won every single one-on-one. He's done everything right. I haven't heard too many mistakes out of Frank Ragnow. I think I've only heard him, he's been beat like one time the entire week of training camp. I mean, it just seems as though he's taken his game to the next level, and if the Detroit Lions want to have a good offensive line, if they want to help Stafford, if they want to open up holes in this run game, they have to have an elite center, and Frank Ragnow was really good last year, and I think he's gotten even better in this 2020 offseason. Now, the next offensive lineman that we're going to talk about, the next takeaway, is that Taylor Decker is back. Now, obviously, he never left. He never really got injured recently. But, in his rookie season, I think Taylor Decker did really, really well. He showed a lot of good things. And then he tore his labrum in his shoulder. And in my opinion, hasn't really been the same since. He's really struggled since that labrum injury. And while he's been solid and above average, in my opinion, I think that his peak so far in his NFL career was that rookie season where he played really, really well for the Detroit Lions. However, in this training camp, he has been dominant. He has shut down Trey Flowers. He has shut down every single defensive lineman that has come his way, and a NFL analyst for Sports Illustrated has come out and said that Taylor Decker is having as close to a perfect training camp as I've seen. So, I mean, Taylor Decker is out there dominating. He's shutting down Trey Flowers. We know how good Trey Flowers is. He's shutting down the rest of this defensive line, and, I mean, he just seems like he is back. He seems like he is ready to go, prove that he needs that next contract, prove that he is worth the money, and he is really trying to earn that next contract, which is great to see, because if he plays well, I have no problem paying him money as long as he's going to protect Stafford and keep him upright and open holes in the run game, which he seems to be doing pretty well in training camp so far. Then we get on to TJ Hockenson. Now, TJ Hockenson, as far as everything I've seen, his work in the offseason, working with Tony Gonzalez, working with George Kittle, working with the Iowa football staff, or working with people from Iowa college, it seems to be working off because TJ Hockenson, again, just like some of these other guys, has been dominating the defensive backs in practice. I mean, this dude is being a problem in practice. He's getting big plays. He's getting touchdowns. I mean, the defensive backs cannot cover him, and he looks like the 8th overall pick. He looked really good last year. At points, he showed the flashes, and from everything that I've read, it looks like TJ Hockenson has put it all together and is just a little bit more consistent with those flashes now, and he is looking like he's going to be a really good weapon, a great weapon for Matthew Stafford this year, and one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Then we move on to Jamal Agnew, who, as we know, transitioned to wide receiver in this offseason. I've heard a lot of really good things about Jamal Agnew. I've heard he's been turning heads in practice recently. He's had a lot of really big plays. He's had a lot of deep shots that he's caught. I've heard a lot of really good things, and personally, when he transitioned to wide receiver, when I heard that, I wasn't super high. Generally, if you're switching positions in the NFL, it doesn't go super well because you failed at the position you've been playing your whole life. Switching over to a different position, especially on the the whole other side of the ball, it can be tough on players. But from everything that I've seen, Jamal Agnew has taken that and ran with it. I mean, the dude he seems like he's just a big play threat. And if they can add a big play threat with Marvin Hall and Jamal Agnew, two really good speedsters that can stretch the field downfield, if they can keep both of those guys and keep, Quintez Cephas on the roster, that can be a really solid receiving core, and having two really legitimate deep threats down the field is going to help the Detroit Lions offense and the passing offense specifically expand in the 2020 season. And then the last veteran thing that I want to talk about, the last takeaway that I have from the veterans, is that Matthew Stafford is playing even better than last season. I have heard so many good things about Matthew Stafford. He's come back hungry. He's come back ready to play football with his teammates. I mean, I've seen things like I think a couple days ago he said that he was just on point. A ball that he threw did not hit the ground one day. I mean, he's just playing out of his mind. You see the highlights, you watch the highlights that the Detroit Lions put out. Matthew Stafford is throwing dots. He's throwing perfect passes. Justin Coleman against Kenny Galladay, you saw it was a perfect throw. Justin Coleman had really tight coverage, and Matthew Stafford put it right over his fingertips. I mean, you're just seeing all these phenomenal passes by Matthew Stafford in training camp, and it's looking really, really good for the Detroit Lions. And if Matthew Stafford can play up to that 2019 standard, if he can play like the quarterback that was on pace for 5,000 yards and almost 40 touchdowns, and we have a run game next year like we've seen DeAndre Swift been dominating in training camp so far, we're going to have a phenomenal offense. And I don't care how bad the defense is. If you have an offense that puts up 40 points a game like some people are saying the Detroit Lions might be able to do, you're going to win some football games, and you are going to be a threat not only in your division, not only in your conference, but in the NFL in general. So Matthew Stafford is playing like his 2019 self. He's playing like that dark horse MVP candidate that some Lions fans peg him as. And, if he can keep that up throughout the rest of training camp and taking that into the NFL season, our offense is going to be an absolute problem next year, no matter what defense we are facing any given week. Now, I did say we have a little bit of Lions news at the end, and that is exactly what we're going to be talking about now. The other day, the Detroit Lions officially signed Will Clark, a defensive lineman formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals. Will Clark was a former third-round pick by the Cincinnati Bengals. He was okay with the Cincinnati Bengals, and he was there, never really did anything, had a career high of 4 sacks a few years ago, but was never really a huge playmaker, never started a game, I don't believe, or didn't start a lot of football games for the Cincinnati Bengals. Was released, went to Tampa Bay, was cut by Tampa Bay in just over a year, and went to the XFL, where he played for the St. Louis Battlehawks, and he had 8 tackles, 3 quarterback hits, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 sack. Now, I do think he's coming in to replace Jashon Cornell, who unfortunately did go down with an injury. I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't even know if he's going to make the team. Will, I mean, glad you're here. Hope the best for you in training camp, but honestly, I haven't seen anything out of this guy that makes me think that he is going to change the defensive line. I have not seen anything out of this guy that makes me think that, he is going to transform and make this defense elite. I think he's going to be okay competition. I don't think he'll make the team. I think the Detroit Lions are just trying to scramble and find somebody because they weren't expecting Jashon Cornell to get injured, but unfortunately he did, and they are trying to find a quick replacement for him. Now, the other bit of Lions is that the Detroit Lions are already struggling with injury. I've already mentioned Jashon Cornell. I believe he was officially out for the season with an Achilles injury. He got injured very early in training camp and obviously hasn't been available the last couple days. I heard it was a lower leg injury. I believe it's Achilles, and I do believe that they said he is out for the rest of the season. So the Detroit Lions already lost a really good pass rusher. Even though he was a 7th-round pick, a lot of people are very high on Jashon Cornell, and they were expecting him to come in and have a huge part to play in this defensive line, and obviously that is not going to happen right now, and that's bad. But the Detroit Lions have also had other injuries to really, really big and key players on this offense. Guys like Desmond Trufant, Jeff Okudah, Bo Scarborough, DeAndre Swift, and Hunter Bryant have all missed time in training camp. Now, some of those guys were more preventative. Some of those guys, I think, were a little bit more serious, and some of those guys have returned by now. But the Detroit Lions are already struggling with injuries, and I'm not quite sure how everybody else in training camp, I'm not sure how all the other NFL teams are doing with injuries, but it seems like the Detroit Lions are already struggling with the injury bug once again in the 2020 training camp. So that is unfortunate to hear, but some of those players, as I said, have returned, and hopefully everybody is healthy and ready to go by week 1 when we kick off against the Chicago Bears. Now, with that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. Those are my key takeaways from the first week of training camp. I know that some people are doing this every day, doing day by day, but I wanted to wait a little bit because, day 1 and day 2, they're kind of tough to tell because, the guy might just have a bad day. But once you get through an entire week, if the guy performs through a whole week, or if the guy improves throughout the week, then you actually, I think, in my opinion, get a little bit clearer view of what you're getting out of those players. So next week, I will try to get a little bit more daily, try to get out what they do each day in training camp opposed to a week. But I wanted to wait on the first week because, after a week, you kind of get a real vivid image of what the Detroit Lions team is going to look like in this 2020 season. But now that we kind of have that vivid image, we can kind of focus on daily and see what each individual player is doing. But with that being said, that is all I got for you guys today. If there is Lions news before tomorrow, I will obviously make a video letting every single person know. But until then, that is all I got for you guys right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and had an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. If there is more Detroit Lions news, I will obviously make a video letting everybody know, as I said. But if there is not, I will see everybody tomorrow with more Detroit Lions content. I hope everybody enjoyed the video and have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye, guys.